knowledge that I have at this point, I sort of just a brief introduction about myself, and because maybe about half of you know me or have come to openings here at the Royal, and then another half haven't actually been here yet. So a friend and I, Martin Kalanda, took over this big warehouse space in Williamsburg 2013, and I started curating shows from the very beginning, every single month as the single curator. And it's 2,400 square feet in total, and there's 6 actual studios. So the gallery is actually in the front space. In the last couple of years, I've actually reached out and I found 4 female curators, and they have been curating for this last 2 years, basically. And now 2 of those have left, and I have 2 new curators, partners that have come on board. And so with everything sort of changing in the art world, that's kind of where we are right now with why I wanted to do what we're doing. I've actually only been following this for the last couple months, just like a lot of people when you start seeing things in the news. And it's like, it was really confusing from the very beginning. And it took me a long time to actually get to a point where I could actually know what was happening. And it was just like every single day I was learning more things basically every day. So one thing right before we start is I was hoping that we could do a poll, sort of like from 0 to 10, and everybody use the chat function that's down at the very bottom of your screen, basically, so that we sort of get a sense, or I can get a sense of the knowledge that people know about what's happening with NFTs and such. So a little bit more about me is just that I came from Oklahoma. I did an apprenticeship at ULAE, which was out in Long Island. I worked with some very well-known artists. I ended up working for a big artist at that time, and then I went back to school at Cooper Union, and then basically I've been an artist ever since then. So, and we've been lucky to have this gallery space here since 2013, like I said. So the first thing we kind of want to do is I want to give everybody a chance to ask questions, because that was kind of the whole point of why we're doing a seminar. Because I was in this once I started posting about NFTs and doing it myself and setting things up, I started getting a lot of questions, and from people I knew, and then actually from people that I didn't even know at all. So it's like, well, I might as well try to pull all of my knowledge together and then give people maybe a head start, because that very first step seems very daunting. So I'm hoping that with what I can bring to everybody is like I can get you on that very, on the journey, basically. So, it's like, if you've noticed, NFTs have really hit the art world like a shockwave. It was like, we've been, during this pandemic, it's like everybody's been at home for the last year and a half. This technology had already started, basically, with everybody knows about Bitcoin. That started with Satoshi Nakamoto back in 2008, and Bitcoin was sort of its own thing, a cryptocurrency, for a long while, and it wasn't really until 2017 that NFTs came around. So I feel like eventually this would have affected the different the art world, the photography world, the music world in the next couple of years, if it hadn't been for the pandemic. But because of the pandemic, we're all at home, we're all in front of our computers, people are online trading, they're in front of their screens every day. So that's really propelled everything to the speed that is making these huge changes. And I got to say, I think the art world is a little terrified right now, because it's like they're seeing a whole different branch of what's happening. So I'm going to do my best not to throw too many crazy terms at you, and I'm going to try to put it in basic language that it may not be exactly perfect the way it should be, but if you need a definition, you can go down, I created that landing page that has a whole bunch of logos of all these different companies that are being created. There's definitions of each different thing, and then this isn't really a tutorial, this is a seminar. So if you want to be able to do specific things and you're having trouble, then I go on Google or go onto YouTube, and then you'll be able to find those specific things to get you through whatever problem you're having at that time, basically. So the first thing, everything basically started with the blockchain. So we're going to talk about blockchain, Ethereum, and NFTs real quick. So the blockchain is basically, they call it a ledger, but it's made up of little blocks. But if you can think of it more like a spreadsheet, right? We all have used spreadsheets. So if you put something on the spreadsheet and then you go down and you put something else on the spreadsheet, well, this isn't exactly that, because once you put something on the blockchain, it is there forever and you cannot change it. So another bit of code comes and it goes on top of that. And the original founder called them chains. It was like a block of code and then a chain, and you put those two things together. They don't overlap, and you can't override the one that you did previously. So that has created something that allowed, once you put it on there, it's there forever, right? Or if changes do need to be made in the code, then a whole consensus of thousands of computers and programmers have to actually approve that change in case there is a problem. And that has happened minutely over time, but it's not with it where we are now, right? So because of like Bitcoin was one thing, but we needed something to do different types of programs and work for different types of industries. So that is where Ethereum was created. Ethereum is basically like a Bitcoin and like a cryptocurrency, but you're able to add different things to it, like smart contracts. And that's basically like a rule to say, I want to do something. Once again. So an NFT is any kind of digital file that you can put on the blockchain, and once it's there forever. The image, if you're an artist, the image actually isn't on the blockchain. It's just the code that links that piece of code to that image or that music file or that photograph, right? So when you do that, it's like you have a record, and that's why people keep talking about, let's say there's a famous painting in the Louvre. Let's say it's the Mona Lisa, right? So we have the Mona Lisa, and I can download it. I can put it on my computer. I can put it on my phone. I can send it to you. You can put it as your background screen. I can print it out as a poster. I can buy a poster. I can put it on the wall. But I don't own that digital file. So, but if somebody puts that, the original owner or the person that has the copyright, the original artist, or it was the foundation that owned the copyrights to that image, they could put that on the blockchain after they had minted it. That's another term we'll get to in a minute. Then they could sell that piece as a unique item. So another way to think about it, you can sell things as unique, or you can sell things as an addition. So just as if you were buying, like Andy Warhol made prints, and he made like Marilyn Monroe. There's a group of like 20 different Marilyn Monroes that are all on paper, that were all prints, and it was like an edition of one of 250, right? So you can take one of your photographs or one of your images or one of your videos, and you can say, I want this to be unique, one of one, or I can make this one of 1,000. I can make it an open edition, or I just say I want it a 1 of 10 or 1 of 250. Okay, so at that point, each one of those pieces, just like the Andy Warhol, if I own an Andy Warhol print number 23 of 250, I own that real thing, right? So the blockchain allows you, when you decide to make something an addition, you can actually make that so that I own 23 of 250 of that digital image. So that is something that can be done, basically. So if you learn nothing else, that's just the basics right there of how we sort of got to where we are, basically. If you want to begin this journey, the first thing you have to do is you have to set up a digital wallet. And so this is where we actually have some slides that Brenda's going to start pulling in. And the first one is going to be MetaMask. Mm-hmm. So New York has a rule right now that they make it very difficult because of like the bit license for companies to actually sell crypto to people. Okay, so if you go to that landing page that everybody actually signed up for, the very first logo on there in the group of logos is MetaMask. Okay,
Do you want to listen
and
to this?
so MetaMask is basically
It's
a
supposed to be like an
online
hour, I
wallet.
think.
Okay, so this is a Chrome extension. So these two things that I'm talking about right now, this is going to get you on the road to go to that next step. So if you don't do these things, you're never going to be able to get further than this. So you can buy, you can download other wallets, you can do other things, you can buy crypto. Maybe you're already doing that yourself. But if you don't do this, you're not going to be able to get on the main platforms that allow you to mint or put on your images that can be sold, right? So this is a Google Chrome extension. So that will be the first thing you'll have to download. So basically, if you click on the logo that's down in the, this is not a tutorial. We're gonna go too fast for you to do this while we're actually working. But if you go down there and you click on that, that's going to be the first thing that you do. Okay, and you see there's a little box here on the right side that has like 228.77 buy, send. Every time that you log into one of these platforms, that little box will pop up and it'll ask you to verify. So you have to click yes, no, and that allows you to move forward every time you're trying to do something on that platform. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to need to, this is what you need to set this up first, and then the next thing is the switch here, which will be the next slide that Brenda will bring up. Okay, there's a lot of different places, obviously, where you can buy cryptocurrency. This is the only one that I have found that allows you, if you live in New York. If you live in other states, other countries, then you may not need to use this site at all. Okay, this is the one that I recommend if you live in New York. If you live in New York, you're going to have a problem, and this will solve that problem. Okay, so this will allow you to transfer money from your bank account, whether it's like Citibank, Bank of America, Chase, to here, and that allows you'll be able to transfer it to your MetaMask. So the one thing I have to say about this site, and it's a little daunting, is that they ask for a lot of information, and it will make you uncomfortable.
Like that. Yeah, I don't like that.
First thing you'll do is you'll put in all of your credit card information. You'll put in all of your address, your name, just like you would if you're doing a checkout at any other shop, like Amazon or eBay or something like that. So that's a normal kind of thing you do. Once you do that, then they start asking you to verify. So you have to do many different steps. One of them, you have to use your front and back of your license. You have to use some sort of a bank deposit or some kind of tax form, or you can use like a utility, and you have to upload that. So you take a picture with your phone, and you're going to have to upload it. The next thing they're going to make you do is you get your credit card. You already gave them your credit card information, but they're going to make you actually physically take a picture of yourself holding your credit card with a piece of paper around it that has the date, as if you're in like some terrorist sort of something or other. It's like you'll have the date of when you're taking that photo, and you have to put a little piece of tape in front of like 5 numbers in the middle of your credit card, and it has to be the exact like 4 or 5 numbers on the credit card. And then you have to do the same thing with the back of the credit card. And if you don't do that, they won't verify you. This process right here took me 4 days to get through it, and it was very frustrating. And I got to tell you, that's one reason, one of the big reasons I'm actually doing this seminar, because it was mind-numbingly crazy to think that I had to jump through all of these hoops just to be able to get to the stage where I can start putting images onto a platform. Okay? So that's basically where we are at that point. So the next step is basically once you get this, then you can go to OpenSea, and I recommend this site. There are 4 or 5 other bigger sites, but OpenSea is the most respectable, and the biggest people are still putting things on this site. There's other sites that are smaller, and you're not going to get maybe it's like you could be a bigger fish in a small pond, but they don't have as good a interface. And this one is really nice the way that it lays out everything for you. So when you're in Chrome, and you should do, and one thing I would say from the very beginning when you're doing all of this work and starting this process is you're using Chrome as your browser, and then you need to keep like a little notebook of every single password that you're going to have to use to start this process, just to sort of keep yourself organized, right? I know this is a lot, and it's like, but these are the steps that you're going to have to go through. So if you keep yourself organized, it's pretty simple. So every time you go to this site, your little MetaMask, that little box that was in that first slide, it will pop up. And it says, would you like to enter? Basically, once you've actually created a profile, you go up to the top right, and where the little person is, basically, you can go up there and begin your profile. So you can put in a picture of yourself. You can put in a background at the top header of the page. You'll end up naming your profile, basically. So you can either use your name, or you can come up with a silly name, which is like a lot of younger people are doing now, because a lot of names are already taken. But this is what I would say you want to start with, basically. So there's a couple different things. Once you've got your profile kind of set up, then you go up to create, and that's the next thing next to the little icon of the person up on the top right. So when you're creating, you can either do it kind of like any open, where it's on your profile and everything is just dumped into your profile, or you can create collections. So if you create a collection, I recommend that, because let's say you are working with black and white photographs, right? And then you want to make a different section that's going to be color photographs. And then you're going to do eventually, and then 3 months later, you decide, well, now I want to mint a couple videos. So I would put those in 3 different collections, and maybe you have them named different things. And that way you can kind of keep things organized within your profile, basically. One thing, when I was creating I was minting my first piece, was I actually minted that piece, and I started panicking because I'd read a lot about the royalties that you could get from when you mint it, if somebody bought the piece. So I'm like automatically, oh my God, I just created this piece, but there was nowhere on that page where I could say what my royalties were going to be. And so finally I went back to the collection, and then you can edit that collection. And then in your collection, you can put like a different logo, you can put a different title, or you can make those changes. And then you can determine what your percentage of the royalties that you want going forward can be. So that was one kind of, that was like a couple of times of doing it on different platforms. Every time I would do that first step, I would start panicking, because like, what if somebody bought this thinking like you just throw something up and then automatically somebody's going to buy it, like, and then realizing like, why didn't I put a royalty on it? Why I didn't see it? I had to have missed it. It had to be there. I had to have done it wrong. But no, it was because you had to do it in the collections. Okay. So in those collections, or if you're doing it individually, if it's just in the open of your total profile, then you will be able to determine what royalties you want. So that's the cool thing about NFTs, because every single time in the future, when you sell this piece, you're going to be able to get, most of them are using 10%. But let's say every single time it sells 5 years in the future, 50 years in the future, 100 years in the future, your family will still be getting royalties of 10% every single time that piece sells. And that's an exciting thing. about what the NFTs are going
Yeah,
to
for
be able to
sure.
allow you to do if you start gaining traction, gain a following, have collectors, and it continues. So the next thing is a ledger. So let's say you're anxious. You've read all these stories or something, where you read one story about somebody being hacked, and so I ordered, and especially if you're buying crypto also. So this is a ledger right here. This is a tiny little. It's almost like a thumb drive, basically, right? And so it has little buttons here. And if you would like, if let's say you're suddenly selling for hundreds of thousands of dollars, or you already own Bitcoin and you've done really well, and you don't want to keep it in your wallet because you're a little bit paranoid, which is probably a good thing. This is a physical thing that once you connect this, and this is the site, and it's like the third logo on the page, that you can transfer that crypto that's in that wallet to this tiny little ledger. And no one, as long as you are the only person that has this password, no one can ever take it from you. So you could put this in a safe deposit box or whatever. So the other thing you can do, you don't have to put it on something like this. You could automatically change over the money back to your bank account. But every time you do that, it's going to charge you a percentage. So, and that's just, it's part of the fees of kind of doing what you have to do. So, okay. So, man, time's going really fast. So the next thing, I know people want to ask some questions, and I guess we're just going to have to try to get that to the end, and I'm going to try to go a little bit faster. So I'm already about 10 minutes past what I'm supposed to be. Expectations. The first NFTs were CryptoPunks, CryptoKitties, and hash masks. So I just want to give a very brief thing about what was happening in 2017. A company named Larva Labs was actually, they created 10,000 of these things, and they're unique digital pieces. They're not artists. They gave them away for free. And suddenly people that are in the sort of let's see, it's like the .com sort of Silicon Valley area, they started using them as their icons. So when it became like a status symbol. So now these little pieces are selling for like $70,000, which is insane. That's just one little guy, and there's 10,000 of them. So this was the very first thing that caught on before any artists actually started putting artwork as NFTs. So the next one is the CryptoKitties. And CryptoKitties was basically a game, and you can think of this as a Pokemon, basically. And these are ranging. At one point they were up $5,000, $10,000, and now it's calmed down, and it's like they're like $1,000 or $50. And it was basically you play a game, you choose traits, and then you mate one cat with another, and then they get different attributes, basically. And then the next one is hash masks. So hash masks was actually one of the first pieces that was actually multiple artists. There was like 70 artists around the world that they would choose a mask, they would choose a background, and then they would choose a pose and one or two other elements. And then those things got mashed together. And now these things are selling for around $10,000 each. So this is kind of the crazy part of where things have been. And this is like the hype was all about these sort of like trading card sort of ideas. But one thing I just want to say is that all of the technology and everything that's being used right now, we should be proud of, because all of this is like Silicon Valley, American US companies, and it's like all of this technology is happening here. It might be different minority, Asian, Indian people that have come to America or been born in America, and they are starting some of these galleries. But most of these, like 95% of these companies are all American. I think that's very exciting because you think, oh, we're falling behind the rest of the world or something, and it's like other countries are going to take us over with the new technology. But this field right now is exploding right now. So I think it's kind of like the .coms. You know, you have thousands of companies that are being created right now. It's moving so quickly. A lot of those are going to fail, but the market will determine what's actually working, and then that will push. And you know, you go from one thing that fails, and then it actually pulls something ahead that actually is really big, and everyone begins using it. So the next thing that we want to talk about is this is obviously Beeple. Mike Winkelmann is the person the artist that's been in the news, basically. His journey as an artist really only started in October when he started minting NFTs. The very first thing that he minted, it's like he sold it for around $60,000. And to him, that was more money than he had basically ever made on one project or something. But how he got here, and before we get to this B20, was that he had been making one piece and posting it every single day for 13 years. No matter what day it was, what time it was, he always posted. And this is even before Instagram was created. So he was making things and posting them every single day before that happened. And because he's like a graphic designer and in this digital world, he's been working with some huge artists. He was in basically concert visuals for like Ariana Grande, Justin Bieber, Nicki Minaj, Shakira. He actually did a halftime at the Super Bowl for her. Katy Perry, Eminem, Deadmau5. And he worked with brands like Louis Vuitton, Nike, Coca-Cola, SpaceX, Apple, and Pepsi was another one. And so if you can imagine, every single time he was working with all these brands, he wasn't really thinking, oh, I'm going to be a huge artist. He was just gaining followers on his Instagram. And suddenly last year, I mean, he was almost at 2 million followers, and he had more followers than just about any other artist on Instagram at this point. And so people had started posting NFTs and making money, and then they were reaching out to him and said, hey, you need to start doing this. So that first thing, it kind of blew him away because that was more money he'd ever made on one thing ever, right? And then so the next thing he did was he started working for the next couple weeks. He got together another collection, and that was the 2020 collection that was launched in December of basically last year. So several different things happened. There were editions of like 100. There were 3 editions that I think were or at least 1 or 2 editions that were totally open for 5 minutes, and then he did 20 pieces that were these 2 things. Sorry, if you bought one of these pieces of one of the 20, then you would get this physical token. Right now, this physical token had, if you can see that little card kind of shape there, that is actually, the NFT is actually loaded onto that. So you actually has a physical thing that you can watch, and it's on a never-ending loop that you can put on your bookshelf, and it'll go for a couple hours. Then you have to put it in the box again so it gets recharged. And then these other things that he put in here, it's like he put a certificate of authentication basically, and then there's a coin and some hair, and all of these things he just basically created. He went online and he searched for things. So like that, it's a metal coin. You can buy those for like 50 cents to $1, right? He bought the box at somewhere else for a couple dollars each. He printed out the cover of this by himself, or had a company down the street do it basically. And then so what ended up happening, before we get to the next slide, we want to go back to the B20. So Brenda, if you can go to the one just before this, right? Okay, so this one person bought every single piece in December, all 20 pieces, and he bought 20 pieces, right? He took those pieces for $2 million. He bought them all for $2 million, and then he put them in a hedge fund, and he created this, which is B20. Now this B20, anyone can go and buy this as if it's a stock or a company, and now its value is up to 100 million. which is just crazy of what's happening in the art space. So now let's go down to the two more past the physical piece, Brent. Okay. So this right here, if you see this is like, it's also in all the logos. So this is called infinite objects. So when you're minting a piece, you have a little box there that you can put unlockable content. Okay, so that unlockable content allows you to do some crazy things, and having that box that he could send to that first buyer, that's what he put in the unlockable section. Okay, so that's what he did, and you don't have to put all of those things together. You could do the same thing. You can put a certificate of authentication. You can put a larger res file. You could put a token, like a little metal piece, or you could put like a greeting or a thank you video, or if you make music, you could add music that only the person that owns that piece could actually view. So there's lots of things. Or, you could think about, let's say you're doing like a treasure map or something, and you have a crazy idea, and it's like only the person that owns the piece can get to the next level. You could put something in that space that only the person that owns it can know that information. So it's like, that's kind of open to everything. So that's where we are right now, basically. So that's Beeple, and that's how we got to the next step, which is, let's see, this piece. So this piece sold at Christie's, and it ended up selling to the same person that bought the pieces for that B20. And this is the piece that's 5,000 individual images into one image, and he sold this for $69 million. So this is the craziness of what's happened in the space. And I would think of this as, he's a digital artist, and if you're a contemporary artist looking at digital art right now, you have to think this is never going to last. But if you think of like street artists, right now in the contemporary art world, we have Banksy, we have Shepard Fairey, and we have Cause. So within the next couple years, some of these digital artists will begin showing in major galleries.
Yeah.
But the way I'm thinking of it right now is, more than likely there's only going to be a handful that actually break through and cross over from being a digital graphic artist to actually being in the contemporary art world that we think of as what's the contemporary art world is. So how do you basically create an online empire and become just insanely rich overnight? All I can say is, I'm going to throw some water on you. It's not going to happen. For anyone to actually see your work, you have to point them to it. But, the whole reason I told this whole Mike Winkelmann story is that this is something that he'd been building on for 13 years to sort of get to this level. So for anyone to have success, it's going to take years to actually get to that level. But this allows you to drive traffic, because once you pay that very first fee on like OpenSea, let's say you're using OpenSea, once you pay that very first fee to get on there, everything you put on that platform, you can mint for free. So it's not going to cost you anything else at that point. So you can put up as many pieces as you want to. And there's only a fee when someone pays for that piece or buys that piece or you accept their offer. So that cost is going on to the collector. So you don't have to worry about it at that point. Okay? So, that's one of the best things that's about putting things on a platform, basically. So since everything that's been happening, I know it's like the craziness, but really the people that are actually selling work and doing these drops, which is almost like having an exhibition, is like, it's the influencers, the people that already have followings. So like, just for instance, like last night, I looked up how many people followed him. It was like 2.1 million. Okay, that was on Instagram. And then I decided I'm going to look at Kim Kardashian. She has 215 million people that follow her. So that's the difference between an artist and someone who's in Hollywood or on TV or who is super famous, it's like it's still a fraction, but that fraction, even a person who's an influencer that may only have a couple 100,000 or a million or 10,000, whatever, 40,000, whatever the price point is, if they have people that are supporting them, they can start creating things that are similar to their work that allows them to sell both the physical thing that they make, but also sell a digital thing that they make. Okay. So the next thing I want to talk about is marketing. So that's the thing. This is all about social capital. It's all about social media and then engagement. Now, the one good thing about having like all these different social media accounts and such is like people are really paying attention and they do like and support and people are paying attention right now. So you can go on, it's like the new thing is like Clubhouse or Discord or Reddit or Twitter. Most of the graphic designer sort of 3D people that are doing interactive work, they're using Twitter. So it's like you need to add a few accounts, and that's just another thing to help you sort of get your word out. So every time you're doing something new, you post it. Beeple's posting a piece every single day. Maybe, if you're in your art studio, it's going to take you longer to make work, but you still have to have some engagement. So you have to find some in a way. But this allows you to sort of like build a collector base in some ways, because you could start your prices low because you always think if that piece sells, every single time it sells, you're going to get royalties from it. So it's not like having a gallery where it starts so high that no one's going to come and buy your work as an emerging artist. You can start it really low, and then you can slowly, if somebody resells it for twice what you put it there to begin with, the next time you put something up, and putting something up once you've paid that initial fee, it's just basically like posting on Instagram. So it's just that simple, right? Okay, so the next thing would be investing in bands and rock stars and athletes. Okay, Top Shot has been a big one for sports stars, and like the NBA took like 10-second videos of like LeBron James dunking the basketball, and suddenly people were paying $200,000 for that unique video, right? But the other thing that you can do that's going to start happening, you're just going to see it everywhere, and it's kind of fun. Like instead of me buying stock in Amazon or Facebook or any other huge corporation that I don't really trust, it's like I can invest in a band or I can invest in a rock star, and every single time you're going to be able to buy their token, and then you can like speculate like this person won a Heisman Trophy. I think he's going to do really well when he goes into football and begins playing next year. So, or you can take someone who's like a Mouseketeer when they're 14 years old, and you say, "Oh my God, my daughter loves her, and she has an amazing voice, and I think that she's going to be the next pop star." So when she's 14 years old, you're going to be able to buy her token, and then you hold that for 4 or 5 years, and then boom, she blows up, and it's like she's the next big thing, and she becomes like a Britney Spears, and then suddenly you're investing in a person. Or if you're investing in that band, the next album that they put out, it's like if that album does really well, then your stock goes up, and then suddenly that token is worth more, and it's just another way of collecting. Okay, so the next, let's see, Brenda, what is the next slide here? So this is called Bitcloud, and this is the site where you can actually go on there and you can buy a percentage of these people's tokens, right? And this is kind of just the crazy thing that's happening in the NFT space, because it's a way, it's kind of like a way to raise money, but I guess it's like if their career is going really well, then supposedly it'd just be like a regular stock, so that if they're doing really well, it keeps going up. But if suddenly something really bad happens to them, or if their new movie does really bad, then that should go down. But this is a site that is basically trying to capitalize on that sort of idea. But if you can think about it, there's been ways to sort of try to raise money over the last couple of years. This is a way that individual artists or bands, or anything that as a group of people that you want to believe in that, then you're going to be able to make a token of that band, of that group, of whatever that thing is. It's like a team, basically. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is basically the future. So this is something that, as running the gallery here at the Royal, it's like I'm thinking a lot about, because one of my new one of my new clients, one of my new curators, one of my new curators is actually, she just went back to China and she wants to put on virtual shows, and she is now the co-curator at the Boxes Art Museum in China. Okay, so because of that, I am thinking, wouldn't it be great, instead of just putting images on our website, that people from all around the world could actually either go on their browser, or they can put on like an Oculus, basically the things that you wear around for 3D, total surround, and you can go into a space and we could have monthly shows with the artwork that's hanging on the wall, right? And so that piece, if that was an NFT that's hanging on the wall, person could come to this space, they could walk up to that space, they could click on it basically, and then they could buy that piece from that virtual exhibition, right? Now you could also do this with your own artwork, and you could have shows. If you created a gallery of just your own work, you could have a show of your own work like this. Okay, so there's a couple different spaces. There's Decentraland, there's let's see, Somnium Space, and Terra Virtua. So the next one, I believe, is, so these are Decentraland, and then the next, so this is like this is like the outside of the space. This is like a whole virtual world, like the metaverse, basically, where you can walk around to different worlds, and it's like you have different, it's almost like going to Disneyland. Like the different sections of Disneyland, like you go from one thing that's like the pirate section to the space section to the magic section to the animal kingdom section, right? And so this is just like a place, and you can like teleport from one place to the next. But if you have the unique link, or the unique let's say it's like a URL that in a browser, you can go directly to like my gallery or your gallery or the museum, and you can go into that space. So there's one or two more images here. So this is now, I believe this is Terra Virtua. Yeah, so this is like, Terra Virtua actually probably has, this and Somnium have probably the best graphics. And also over here, they have these little robots that are kind of like little helpers. And they will go around, and if you have problems, then, or if you're looking for something, you can literally go and click on that. And I know this is sort of like a foreign concept right now, but it's like, since we've all been home for the last, year and a half, basically, I mean, I just feel like this would be, it's like much more fun, basically, than just coming to our website and scrolling down, images of artist work. Because the current show that we have up right now, we have 5 artists that are in the physical show, and then we have 6 artists that were actually only virtual. And so they are actually listed on the website. So I would love to be able to do, and this is the next thing I'm wanting to sort of try to develop, is like put the work into a space that people can come into. And then you could actually take videos of your avatar in this space, and then you could share that with people as you're walking around 360 of a sculpture or something on the wall or something like that. So this is more like the gallery. This is a gallery view. And they also have them, it's almost, they set them up, if you want, to be like a man cave. So like all of your collectibles could be in like a place where people could go sit down, which I know is a weird thing if you're in a virtual space. So now we're talking about the next sort of level of gallery exhibitions and the gallery system and things that are happening, like how to put these things on your wall, basically. So how do you take all of these images and create sort of like a transformative sort of space? This was actually a real thing that was done at the Cleveland Museum, and you could go through and it was like something you could go through. This is not basically NFTs, but now in the next few slides here, you'll see that it's like they're beginning to create different places where you can go buy frames instead of just using a flat screen television. Like this company right here, there's another company that I have a logo of called Black Dove. Black Dove was making these frames right here. Go ahead and go back. Go back.
Bitch.
So Black Dove was actually making frames, but they're up to like $25,000 each. Okay, so this company is like a startup that just started within the last couple months here, and the first pieces that they made, they were selling for $1,500 and $2,500, right? And they sold out automatically. So they could not make them fast enough because people are buying them. And so you can imagine that galleries, when everything gets back up and running, galleries are going to be buying these. Now, if you think about it, like when phones came out or computers came out or any new technology, it's always like way too expensive. But this is, let's say, just within the last couple months, we went from one company that's selling something for $25,000, and now you can buy it for $2,500. That's how quickly things are changing in this space, and it gives you opportunities to present work in a completely different way. I mean, now artists in the contemporary art world, we've been making work like videos since 1970s and even earlier, and projecting them on the walls and having spaces. But this is actually putting something that is like a physical painting on the wall that sort of takes it off of, oh, I'm just buying a video that is projected, right? So this is how you sort of open your ideas to try to change something and move to that next step. Okay, so maybe Brenda can go to the next. So this is actually a real thing where it's like a smart home, basically, right? So imagine all of these pieces that are being bought and sold right now. You know, the one thing about it is we don't actually have a way to present them unless you do buy something like that. You can put your flat screen, you can go buy a television flat screen for, $600 of like, it's like 50 inches or bigger, so it's like, but the ones that were like the Kronos, it's a little bit more refined, of course. And so these two images here, it's like we're talking about apartments and homes in the future where you're going to be able to change the atmosphere of the background and have an animated image or something. Like this could be LeBron James dunking the basketball, and it could just be him up there floating as if he's about ready to dunk it. It's like, it's animated or not animated, but you have a party, somebody comes over and you say, yes, that's amazing. Somebody says, wow, that's so cool, because they love sports. And then, but you say, yes, and I own that piece, right? So it's the same way that collectors in the art world are going to say, it's a status symbol because that's something that talks about their personality, right? And it's actually animated. So you're going to have entire walls that are going to be basically digitalized in the future. Right now, we're sort of at the smaller stage, and it's only big corporations that are using these huge installations like that Cleveland Museum that are doing interactive sort of things where it's like touch screen and you can move things around. So to really get back to what's happening now, I think this is the last slide. So the gallery system that we are all used to, if you're a contemporary artist, is that, you sort of go through the ranks. You're an emerging artist. You sort of begin building a career. You have a good show. You get a little heat. And then you go to that next level. You get picked up by a good gallery. And then you go to the next level and the next level. So the same thing is going to basically happen in this digital world. And this is just another tool. If you're going to be thinking that you need to start making digital artwork that moves in things, you're already 10 years behind. you got 14-year-old kids that are so advanced right now that they might as well be working at the big special effects companies, right? So that's not what I'm trying to say with what we're doing here. It's like this is just another tool for you to use sort of in your quiver that you can allow yourself to gain some traction with what you're doing. You have a physical show, and then you have something else. You have that physical painting, and then you have a digital painting, and they could be exactly the same. Or the one piece is the painting on the wall, and then the digital piece is like a little token, like that small thing that somebody can own, that first person that can own it. But maybe it changes color, or it moves, or it's a video that goes along with that piece. And so it's just a way of like thinking about how to present that next exhibition, right? So instead of just being stuck of where you are or whatever, this is something to think about in the future. Okay, so we're coming up on, we got about 10 minutes left, and then I'll go ahead and we'll do a Q&A afterwards because we've gone long. So right now we're in a speculation bubble, and I'm sorry I just kept talking. I really thought I was going to be able to actually answer questions all along, but time's going so quickly that I just wanted to get through everything, so at least I can give you my knowledge of where we are. So the sort of the speculation bubble that's happening right now, it's crazy. Everything that's being created right now, most of those people never went to art school. They don't know anything about art history. They don't know anything about the different movements. They're 14-year-olds, they're 17-year-olds, or they're just getting into college, possibly. There's people like the Mike Winkelmann that had been doing this for 13 years and had gained a huge following. There's lots of influencers that have gained lots of following. Those people are cashing in right now because the people that have made money in cryptocurrency over the last basically 10 years, those people have now created these platforms, and they are the ones that are pushing these high prices to get everybody involved and excited and come to this space. So if you think about like in the 1980s, there were a lot of artists like Julian Schnabel, David Sally, Basquiat that were in the contemporary art world. And suddenly that was the first time in the contemporary art world that you had 20-year-olds making hundreds of thousands of dollars. And this was kind of unheard of before that time period. It was like this huge bubble that so much money was being thrown around. And of course, that bubble burst. But where we are in the contemporary art world came from that. So now you have hundreds of thousands of kids every single year coming out of college that think they're going to be automatically rock stars. They're going to become super rich. They're going to like come right out of school and boom, you're going to have a career and you're set. Well, we all know it's who you know in the art world. The thing that's the paradigm that is shifting with the NFT space is that because you can set your prices and you can see it, everything is transparent. Every single time that you sell something on the blockchain, on one of these platforms, it lists who bought it and who sold it. And every single time that happens, you get to see the price. Because it's like you sold it for that low price, then they resold it. In the contemporary world, when we're just making physical things, we let it go. And it's like we hope that, a couple of years down the road, we get into a bigger gallery and suddenly we can raise our prices. But here you can actually see one-to-one that if somebody else is buying it for a different price, that next thing you put up, you just put it for that price because that's the going rate of what's happening. You don't have to guess. You don't have to think, oh, I'm putting it too low. So start low because you can begin getting collectors excited about your work. How you do that is up to you. And there's going to be tons of ways, obviously, that it's like different ideas of all these things that are going to, this bubble is going to burst. People are going to lose a lot of money because these people they've been buying things from people that are not artists. So all those little kitty cat things, all that kind of stuff, all that is just junk, basically. The crypto punks, the hash masks, and the crypto kitties may stay around because the the CryptoPunks were the very first project that was ever done in this space. So if you think about the art world, it's not always who's the better artist, it's who did it first. Who made this kind of abstraction first, and then they are the one that get recognized. So it could be that one or two of these things has a longer life to it, but the bubble is just, it's only going to last a couple of years, and then it's all going to crash down. But the contemporary art world hasn't caught on yet, that they haven't started taking, we're not having physical shows as much, so they're not taking any of those artists and rising up the galleries into the bigger galleries. And the biggest thing is all the blue chip artists right now, like a Gerhard Richter, he owns the rights, he owns the copyright to his own artwork. He may have sold a painting in 1962, but he still owns the rights to that, right? So that painting that he sold for, let's say it was $2,000 in 1962, now that painting is selling for $100 million, right? And he made $2,000 on that piece. His new pieces, let's say he'll sell for a couple $1 million, but it's still, those early pieces are selling for $100 million, and he gets nothing from that, right? I mean, let's not feel bad for him because of that, or any blue chip artist, right? But now he owns the rights because he is the artist of that piece, every piece that he's ever created. So he can digitally make a copy and put it on the blockchain, and then that piece, let's see what it sells for. The first time it might sell for a couple million. The next time it sells for tens of millions. And then eventually you've got a physical piece that's worth 100 million. You've got a digital piece that's worth 100 million. But every single time it resells, he would be able to get 10 or 20% every single time he sells, even after he passes away. So let's say he's worth 100 million right now. I'm sure he's worth a lot more than that. Let's say he's worth 100 million right now. If he started minting NFTs and selling those pieces within the next couple years, he could be a billionaire. And that's what people don't understand right now that's happening in the contemporary art world, because all of the bad stuff that people are trying to say, this is not going to last, this is a fad, like the internet was a fad, right? Well, we're using the internet still. All of these people, all of these artists, once they realize this and understand that this is the power that they have, they don't really need the gallery system anymore. So the gallery system, they're going to fight this tooth and nail, because this is the artist taking power back. Now, I'm not a blue chip artist. Most of you are not blue chip artists. And so we aspire to be that. But this is the understanding of why you would want to be in this space. A few years ago, photographers started having problems because you used to be able to sign contracts and people could, you knew exactly what you're going to get for royalties. And then times got hard and they started kicking all those contracts out and said, well, I'll just hire somebody else. But now you can set up your photography business, or if you're a video artist, or if you're doing weddings, whatever it is, and you say, okay, this is part of my platform. If you want to buy this piece, and even though I'm doing freelance, you have to buy the NFT, and then you don't have to worry about them signing a contract because you already set the royalties at 10%. So if it goes in there and you created that business, you sold that photograph, you go in there, and it doesn't matter what you sign or them, upholding something, because part of your business is that no matter what, it's on the blockchain, and once it's up there, it can never come down. It's there forever. It's there for the next 1,000 years, unless we have a zombie apocalypse and the entire internet goes down and suddenly we stop using electricity, right? And the whole world crashes. It's there. It's there for your family. It's there for your foundation. It's there for the next generation. It's there for your kid. It's there for your kids' kids, right? And that can be part of the thing that is going to change the space for every industry, right? because you have shoe companies, you have high-end companies, Louis Vuitton, you have every single company like Chanel, that they don't want their pieces to be fakes out there, right? They're already trying to embed things in it like holograms and such, but now they can make it so that they can make a physical piece, a purse that's worth thousands of dollars, but then they can also sell you the digital piece that connects the two things together, right? And that's something that it's like that's going to be part of the sort of like landscape that's happening also. So we're getting close to the end. This is 9:00, so we'll start answering some questions. So just a few closing things. The possibilities are endless, so it's kind of up to you. The one thing that I still don't know about, if there's anybody here that actually has more knowledge about like building platforms, smart contracts, and virtual galleries, it's like that's the next thing that I'm looking into, because it's like I need to know, like if I'm showing an artist here in the gallery and they've created NFTs, I need to know, usually they sign a consignment agreement with them. We get a percentage and they get a percentage. Well, but if you create an NFT, it's like it's just theirs. So you have to be able to put a smart contract with it, so that when they're showing with us at the gallery, that if we sell a piece, we get a percentage and they get a percentage, but their piece is still on the blockchain, right? So that's the next thing that I'm kind of thinking about. And I guess I want to, I'm hoping I can get everybody's feedback after this is all over. You guys can go ahead and ask questions. And then, when you guys do post your NFTs and such, it's like, if you go to my Instagram or put my, at Jason Clay Lewis on your post or whatever, then I will share it. And I will put it on my, my story for the day. So every single person that I know or do not know, if you add that to it, I am going to support you. Okay? So now we're kind of at a point where if anybody actually wants to ask questions, then, I don't know if anybody actually was ever typing questions while we were talking, but if anybody just wants to jump in, raise their hand or whatever, and Brenda will kind of moderate.
Okay, great. Jason, we have half an hour for questions, or how much time do we have?
Yes, we have until 9:30. I think we get kicked off around 9:30.
I think we have enough time for all the questions. Everyone has been posted while you were talking. So first, Daniela, she's have 3 or 4 questions written up. And so Daniela, let's pick 2 of the most important questions, so you can leave room for other people. Let's start with one first, and then move on to other people, and then we come back to you, okay? So I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Hi. You can hear me okay, right?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Let me look in the chat here. I did have quite a few questions. One of them was, sorry, I'm trying to find them in the chat. Should the price of an NFT affect the price of an original artwork?
I don't think so, because you have 2 different systems right now. You have the gallery system that they're going to set their prices. And because usually they take 50% and you take 50%, it's like they're kind of doubling that price. And that's just the standard of where the industry is, right? So you shouldn't think about having to set a high price for your work, because when you set those royalties, you're going to be able to sell that piece. Every time it sells, you're going to make money on it. So on the physical piece, once it's gone, and we kind of use high prices in the contemporary art world just because once it's gone, we don't get anything else. That's it. So in the galleries taking half, so it kind of feels like you're getting screwed. But, you can start something really low. The very first piece that you put on, like, let's say I've been talking about OpenSea a lot tonight, because that's the one that I put on several different platforms. But that one, it was like when I minted my first piece, it cost around $80, and then I think there was another $10. So, but right now Ethereum has actually gone up a lot. So it's probably you have to think it's going to cost you about $100 to mint that first piece, let's say. So when you first transfer money to your MetaMask, you probably want to put in like $250, $300 maybe at most. just to sort of have enough money in there, because every single time you transfer something, it's kind of like using PayPal. They take out like a 2 or 3%. So if you're constantly just putting in, I'm only going to put in $100, they take out 3%, and then you put in another $100, and they take out another 3%. It kind of starts adding up after a while. So just put like a small amount, and then that very first piece, you got to expect, hey, it's going to cost me $80, $100, something like that, depending on what the Ethereum price is. And then after that, you can just think about it as if it's Instagram. I'm just putting up another piece. I'm going to put it at a low price. And then that next time it sells, boom, it's going to go up and up and up, hopefully. That's great. Yep.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Oh, Brenda, you're on. You need to unmute.
Okay. So next, Hermione has a question. Hermione, are you here?
Yeah. Hi, Jason. Hi. So Daniela was actually asking the same question, I think. So basically, it's kind of like a joint question. My question was actually in relation to copyright theft, because basically anybody can create an NFT. So even if actually you don't even know someone is creating an NFT out of your own work, so like I'm not really sure how like you can actually even protect work from potentially being infringed or like being stolen.
Well, the thing I can say is when you go through this process, you have to be verified. So they are very, of course, there's always going to be people that are forgers and are going to try to sell things that are not theirs. But it's like you have to go through a verification process. And when you're putting it up there, you're putting it as if you created it. And you have to make that decision. Because ultimately, they could come after you, and then they're just going to take you down from the platforms. So if you're trying to build a serious career as an artist, and somebody sees that somebody's stealing somebody else's work, if I start posting Mike Winkelmann stuff as if it's my pieces without making any changes at all, of course, somebody's going to come and sue me. And all they have to do is go to OpenSea or one of these other platforms, and they're going to take you down. So you got to think about this as your legacy as an artist, and think about, it's like, yes, there's always going to be somebody that's going to try to get away with something. But, artists, just like hip hop artists, are, it's like you sample from one song, and then you take that beat, and then you turn it into something new. An artist will take an image, put another image on top of that, and then try to make something that's surrealistic and their own work. So Beeple does the same thing. He's taking, you might take an image of Pac-Man and you change it enough that it's your own thing. So I don't know if I actually have the exact answer, the specific law right now of what's happening in the space, because literally there's probably only 1% of the population of all artists even that are actually using NFTs right now. So all of this stuff is going to shake out, and the people that are doing it right now, they haven't gone to art school. They don't have the morals properly. They're just looking to make a quick buck, right? So I hope that helps.
Yeah, thank you.
Great, thanks. Next is Suzanne. You have a few questions. Please pick one that you most important to you to ask. I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Hey, how are you, Jason?
Doing great. Nice to see you.
Yeah, good. Yeah, sorry I'm not being shown right now, but it's good to see you and everybody. Wow, I'm kind of overwhelmed, and my questions are totally kind of lame next to everybody else, because I just didn't even understand what the whole NFT was really about, what it meant. I didn't understand a lot of terms like what's a quiver and what's a mint. That's how beginning I am.
Well, that's fine. So just to sort of reiterate what we're talking about here, we're talking about a unique digital footprint for an image or a video, anything that is digital. It doesn't matter what that digital thing is. So when you're putting it on the blockchain, you're making something that's unique. Even
So
if
you might
even if it's
offer-
one of 200, it's still you can. The person that is buying that piece is just buying it as if it's a print. So once you mint it, that is basically turning it into something. It's a piece of code that goes on the blockchain that's connected to that digital file. So that's why somebody is now able to buy something that is absolutely unique.
I see, but I don't have to worry about making the code. It could be one of my pieces of artwork I could put up.
Exactly.
But as a digital image.
Exactly. So just as like you're making digital images, but you're putting it on your website, right? Mm-hmm. So you can take that exact same image and you could mint that. But think about the future. In the future, let's say you have an apartment and you have red walls, right? In the picture that you take for your website, the background is white, right? So if somebody buys your piece and they put it on their red wall, it's going to be this big white blob with the piece on a white field. You could put that image, if you cut it out as a transparent background, then let's say that you have that picture frame on the wall, whether it's going to be a seamless, like directly on the wall, or if actually going to come off the wall as if like that Quono's thing that's actually like a physical painting, like a like your television, the flat screen. But if it's on a transparent background, then that red would come through that transparent screen. And I'm not saying that those companies are doing that yet, but I'm saying that's something to think about. Yeah. So when I was making my first pieces, that's one thing I was like, if I'm a collector in the future and I want to present this in my apartment, in my home, or in the museum, how would I want it to be or have the flexibility? Now, some of those things don't matter because it's like we're such at the beginning that there's no real standard of you have to do it this way, and then somebody's going to look back at you and go, oh my God, that's so embarrassing, and I can't change it because it's there forever. But it's still something to keep in your mind, moving forward.
Right. Good suggestion. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can we see your page or site? Can you show it to us?
If you go to the landing page, we can't do it without, because I didn't make a screen so that Brenda could add it to. But if you go to that landing page that everybody signed up on, that one, the OpenSea actually has a link, and then underneath my description of my info about my bio, basically, that has links to all the different sites that I've minted to.
Right. And by minting, you mean that you've added, like, does the word mint mean that you're adding?
Yeah, think about it as like when you're minting, like the U.S. government or any government is minting coins.
Got it.
They're making something new, right?
Okay.
So it's like the one thing about OpenSea, when you actually mint, there's the definitions are also on that landing page. Every single day I've been adding logos and definitions and different things because everything's changing so quickly. But when you're actually minting on OpenSea, it actually isn't going onto the blockchain yet. So there's still a possibility if somebody hasn't bought your piece and you want to burn it and get rid of it, you can. But once somebody's actually bought that piece, that's when it gets minted, and they have to pay the fee, which is going to cost them like an extra $100 or more, depending on at the price of Ethereum at the time. Okay. So it's like basically, so at that point you have to pay for your first one, but every single time you put something up there again, just you can think of it as Instagram. It's not going to cost you anything, but it's going to cost the collector something when he buys it.
Oh, so so our first one or two pieces that we mint will cost us, but anything we want to add afterwards, like it will cost nothing for us to put up.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Okay, great.
The one thing that's changed on the platform like OpenSea was when I first put up my first couple ones, I was like, I don't know if I want to use Ethereum because it's weird. It's like, how do you find out like 0.1, 5 versus 0.19? because like the first time I put something up, it was like 0.19 was like $300, and then 0.15 was like 250, and then it was like a couple of weeks later, and then suddenly it was like 1.15 was over $300. So it's like fluctuated so much. So I used the USDC coin, which is basically almost like the US dollar coin. But now, if you actually try to use the USDC coin, they actually will charge you. But if you just use Ethereum, they won't charge you.
Okay.
So just use Ethereum, and then you have to go to like the Etherscan site. That's also one of the logos, and that will tell you, or you can just put into Google, how much is 0.115, Ethereum, and it'll say this is, $342 today. And so you're like, okay, I'm going to use 0.14 for my price, or whatever you want to price your thing at.
Great.
Okay, great. Thank you, Suzanne. I'm going to move on
you.
to the next participant. Next is Isabella. You have a question. I ask you to unmute.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Hi, Jason.
There you go. Great.
I have a couple of questions, and I'm going to try to go very briefly through them. Would you quickly run through the rundown of the basic fees and expenses when you sign up for the OpenSea platform, including the digital ledger? So a very practical question. And what would be the best source? Because I've heard that there's used wallets that are resold, but I'm not sure if it's safe. And is Ethereum the only cryptocurrency that is considered on this platform? And also, how does placing sculpture or 3D objects on the blockchain work? How are they marketed here? Is it a series of images, 3D renderings? And then how would the NFT royalties assignment work in this case in relation to the real physical objects and their value, therefore?
Okay, so to begin with, the fees basically getting set up, there's a very small fee transferring money from your bank to the Switch Here, and then getting the Switch Here website to actually transfer the money to your MetaMask. Okay, so every time you do something, there's almost a small charge. So just getting that whole process is going to cost you, let's say, $20 or $30. Okay, that's not so bad, right? It feels like the early days of credit cards, when it's it just feels like fake money because it's not actually something in your hand, and you're just like, oh, whatever, it doesn't make sense, whatever. It's just like digital money, and I'm just spending it, right? It kind of feels like that. It doesn't really feel real. And especially when it's 0.1, blah, 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 it's it just goes on. Now, when you go on to OpenSea, it doesn't cost anything to actually create your profile, set up, to make that look nice, get it named, all that stuff. Now, when you want to put up your first image, that one is going to cost you, depending on the price of Ethereum, somewhere around $80, right? Okay, there might be another charge that's $10 or $20 first, based on how big your file is. On OpenSea, you can actually mint something up to 100 megabytes. Okay, other sites like Mintable, you can mint something up to 200 megabytes. On Rarible, you can only mint something up to 10 megabytes. So you can imagine Rarible is a site that's just a catch-all of everything. It's all kinds of weird stuff. It's mostly not artists. It's Pokemon-looking cards or Magic cards or Fortnite cards or whatever, things like that. And so if you can imagine in the future, if you want to put something on your wall and it's only 10 megabytes, it's probably going to be all pixelated. So that way, you actually need to put something in the sort of unlockable content section. And there's a thing called the IFPC, which is the International, it's the International Planetary, it's called Pinata, but it's the International Planetary File System. Okay, that's what it is. So it's called Pinata, and it looks like a pinata. It's one of the logos, right? So that is basically, you are physically minting it yourself, And that's going to cost you a couple $100 or $100 if you do that physically yourself. But that's only if you use one of these platforms where you're doing something that's low res, right? Or if you have a huge video file that you're going to be uploading to one of these sites, then if you're a band or something and you're putting like a big, a 12-minute video up, and it's going to be bigger than 100 megs, then you would want to use something like this interplanetary file system, right? But once it's on there, it's there forever. It's like it's supposed to be there for the next 1,000 years, basically. And that's basically like putting it on the blockchain, because it's a holding space for that actual physical piece, right? The code goes onto the blockchain, but that physical piece could go on there. But I know that's a lot of extra information, but basically just the cost that it's going to cost you to get on this platform is basically like, let's say it's less than $100, depending on the Ethereum. Okay, and now this little piece right here, which is the ledger, this was $60. So if you're buying a lot of crypto and then you want to keep that crypto and not turn it into dollars right away every time it goes up, you can put this on this little physical thing. And if you have to write down a list of like, I think it's like 24 different words, and you have to know every single word. And then you have to have a 4-digit up to an 8-digit passcode. This one is a four-digit passcode. So if I don't tell anybody the 4-digit passcode, no one could ever get my crypto off, or my cryptocurrency off of this ledger, no matter what. I mean, it's just not possible. If I didn't tell it to my family, if they didn't find it where I was like hiding my passcodes and stuff, they could never get it off. So this is something, but if you want to turn, anytime you want to hook this up to your computer, boom, it's automatic. You can switch it back. You click 2 buttons, boom, it goes back into your MetaMask. All of that crypto is there. Boom, you take it right back off. So that's just about the paranoia. If if you only have a couple $100 on MetaMask or whatever your wallet is, you don't really need this. But if suddenly you've got, 6 figures plus, this is $60, and no one is ever going to be able to hack that, So that's just something to think about in the future. Now we only have a few more minutes, because literally this is until 9:30, and then we're kicked off, whatever. So next question. If that's
Okay, so we have two more. We have 2 more questions. So next person is Robin. I'm going to unmute you. Please. Okay, good. I just ask you to unmute you. Please click on the button. Robin, are you here? Robin? No? Okay. So, all right.
Okay. Now can you hear me?
There we go. Go for it.
Actually, I think the question was already answered, because I was asking about if an original piece of artwork, like a brick and mortar one, can be sold in one type of way, and an NFT of that same piece can be sold, and you already referred to that. So the question that came up in my mind now is, you were mentioning before that you need a very high resolution image to even approach doing this. Like if I was going to take just a brick and mortar type painting and try to make it into an NFT, what kind of resolution would I need to get started?
Well, it's more about the file size, so it's not necessarily resolution. So whether it's 72 DPI or 300 DPI, whatever it is, if you're doing it on OpenSea, it can't be over 100 megabytes. So if you're making an animated GIF and you have 6 images, and suddenly you're creating a GIF that's like huge, it very quickly will go over 100 megabytes. So you have to find a way to pull that down, regardless of what it is, to under 100 megabytes to be able to put it onto the platform. But at that point, you just think about it as an Instagram. Now, in the future, there will be sort of like it's like, oh, if this artist didn't put a high enough resolution, then you don't want to buy this in the future. But if you, as an emerging artist, you don't really have to worry about this. Like that interplanetary system, file system, that allows you to actually mint the things yourself and actually give the buyer a higher resolution. But in the future, it's like, if the parameters sort of change and the whole industry says, we're now in the future and we all have digital walls and you have to have this sort of like a resolution, then possibly those, that collector could reach out to you and say, hey, can you send me the actual physical, or send me a higher resolution if you keep all of those files? And part of going through this whole system is you kind of have to be organized. You have to remember which pieces, you minted, and you have to keep them, maybe buy a unique little, like a thumb drive that has like a terabyte or something on it, that's something like this, but bigger, obviously. And, it's like, you put those files and you keep it separate. And for the moving forward in the future, you have everything together because you know what you already minted.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. Thank you, Robin. Next is if I say correctly, Stefan Caffrey. You have a question. You're gonna have a prompt to ask you to unmute.
Hey, Jason.
Hey, how you doing?
Great presentation. I've got Yale here beside me.
Hi.
Great. Hi.
The question is, if we already sold a physical art piece, could we still create an NFT for it? And would I be the owner of that NFT?
Absolutely. See, that's the thing about the blue chip artists right now and the contemporary art world. They haven't realized that, because you as an artist, you created that piece and you own the copyright to that piece, no matter what, moving forward, unless you give that up. Some of these platforms actually have a little checkbox and you can give the copyrights to a company. So let's say you are a photographer, and like I had a photographer here in the studio a couple of years ago, and he was going to work with David Bowie, and he ended up not working with David Bowie because David Bowie wanted the copyrights to every single image that my friend, the photographer, was going to take. And so he's like, for the rest of time, he's like, I will have no ownership of, I can't post them without being sued. I can't do anything because I'm giving up those copyrights. But contemporary artists are not like that, because we did not you never sign a contract that you give up the full rights of something. You still own it. It doesn't matter how long ago you sold it. You own the copyrights to that piece. So, but one thing I would also say right now, let's say you're just kind of playing around in this space. Instead of just taking everything exactly, like taking a photograph of a sculpture or taking a photograph of a painting, we're going to get cut off here in about a minute. Think about maybe jazz it up a little bit. Give it a little spice. It could be a little animation. It could be a little movement. It could be a little color change, something. So in the future, like maybe just do the black and white version right now, and you're selling only the black and whites because you want to hold on to kind of see as you get your foot, wet in this space, that, then you can actually use that full color piece later on. So anyway, that's just something to think about for everybody. And I think we're going to get kicked off here in less than a minute. So if there's any other questions, I guess maybe I should just say one thing. I would love if everybody could maybe give me feedback. If you think this is helpful, if it's something I should do again, or if it's something that, I've had several people from Europe actually wanting an afternoon because this is like 3 o'clock in the morning for them, whatever. So I was thinking about a weekend and like 1 in the afternoon or something, but in a couple weeks. But I want to make sure that it's like something, or how do we make it better? Or is this helpful at all? Is it me talking the whole time not really helpful? Would it just be people asking questions? Or do I need to break it into different segments? So, Instagram me, send me a DM, or send me an email or something like that, and I would really appreciate it. Once again, when you start posting things, tag me, and then I will share it with everyone I know. So I really appreciate you all being on here. And, the next time we do it, if we're able to do another time, the next time that we do this, I would like to say that anyone who does help me promote the next time, then you can come on for free again, and I can answer more questions and go through everything. So I'm not sure if we'll do exactly the same sort of thing, but it's like I appreciate everybody joining on board. I hope this was helpful. I mean, it's a lot of information. It was me, just you got to go on YouTube every day. You know, it's like I was trying to watch one video every day, and that's how I sort of got to the point where I am now, of just kind of understanding what was happening. And that very first part of actually getting your money from your bank to your MetaMask, that was crazy. So if you just can get that part, that is a huge step right there. So, you know, if you get that step, let me know, because hopefully I helped with that part right there. And then everything else is kind of like, you know, you just have to experiment and see what happens, and think about the future. You know, you have your physical show, but then maybe you have a digital element to it. You know, I mean, artists have been doing it from the 70s. Every show that I've pretty much had, it's like I had physical sculptures, I had paintings, and I also had videos in that show. Well, now those videos can be in a different frame, or you can create a little object that video is actually in that you can give to people. So.
Okay. Yeah, you can
Okay.
say something now.
That's my pitch for the day.
Okay, everyone. I just type in Jason's email in the chat for everyone.